Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today is day one of my annual Halloween week of videos, part one of a 5-part series. And today I'm kicking things off with John Carpenter's The Thing. Also, this is kind of doing two things at once. I am trying to review every film John Carpenter ever directed, and this is also a part of that series. This creature crash lands on Earth many, many years ago in Antarctica, and froze there for hundreds of thousands of years until other people found it, and then it destroyed them. This creature finds its way to the United States Scientific Center in Antarctica. It has the appearance of a dog and makes its way into their camp, and it starts slowly taking people over, and they eventually start figuring out that this dog isn't a dog, it's an alien creature that can copy people and copy cells exactly. And the paranoia around the film is really what makes The Thing, or John Carpenter's The Thing, so special. Because as you're watching it, there's a lot of moments where you're not sure who is the thing and who isn't. And even watching it several times that I've watched it, I still don't really know who is the thing and who isn't. John Carpenter and Kurt Russell in their commentary actually said that they don't know and they don't even want to know. They like the doubt that is over the entire film, that you're never sure. And I think that's one of the basic elements of horror that really makes something scary, is the unknown. A lot of stuff happens off screen, or you think happens off screen, or maybe happened, or would this camera move that way? Does this mean that? I'm not sure. And that's kind of the fun of The Thing. It's a little more, I think, adult and serious than Carpenter's other horror films like Halloween and Christine and The Fog. Not that those are bad films or anything, but this film is very, very serious. There's very few jokes in it. It's just very dark. Carpenter himself calls this a black and white film shot in color, and I think that's true because it's so dark. Like, so many things are draped in shadow, like almost all the creatures and the models. It has this kind of dark, sadistic kind of edge to it. The colors are very desaturated, not just because of the way they shot it, but it's mostly snow where they are in Antarctica. The climate is such that there's not much color that's really coming through. It's just basically like very white and then very dark. If someone's wearing kind of a colored shirt or anything, it just doesn't really stand out because of where they are and the way it's shot. So it really has a very dark kind of survival aspect to the entire film. I like how kind of gory and disgusting kind of this movie is, and how it's not as nice about it, how it can show you that like aliens could come down and really just destroy us, and that we don't really even understand this kind of creature, that it doesn't really make any sense, and we're not even sure where it came from. I mean, we see a ship crash on Earth at the beginning of the film, but was it the Thing ship? Had the Thing come from another planet and destroyed other entire civilizations before? We really just don't know, and I think that's really terrifying, because this creature definitely has the potential to do that, but we don't really know what it's exactly capable of, and that's very scary. And having this film be released 2 weeks after E.T. is the reason, I think, and a lot of people believe, that it bombed. It also came out the same day as Blade Runner. The mood at the time, and not just because E.T. was out and was such a hit, but it was also, horror film when Carpenter started with Halloween, and at this point when he was making The Thing, the perception and the view of a lot of critics had really changed, because a lot of critics gave it really positive reviews, but then all the Halloween ripoffs came, and really anything with blood and horror, critics would really go after it. And I think it was probably political. It was going against the idea that in the 70s, trash cinema was art, and I think there was a reversal of that when Siskel and Ebert started. Siskel and Ebert were really against horror films in general. I mean, you should read some of their reviews for the Friday the 13th films. Not that they're perfect films, but they really, act like that everyone who wants to see a horror film is going to go out and kill someone. And I think you look at a film that's as nihilistic and serious and dark as The Thing, and they were already in that mode, all those critics. They're in that mode to basically hate a majority of horror films. Now, there are a lot of crap slasher films from that era, but there are actually a lot of really good horror films from that era as well. And I think they got too into talking about how they felt about violence, and it kind of hurt films like this. I don't think it's being very positive about violence. I think it's a very nihilistic view of violence, which isn't positive. And this really hurt Carpenter as well. Carpenter was really on the up before he made this. He had made Assault on Precinct 13, then Halloween was a huge hit, then The Fog, and Escape from New York, all of which did well. And so he was ready for his big studio film, and that was The Thing with Universal. And they were originally going to go with Tobe Hooper, but they decided not to. And I think it made a lot of sense to hire John Carpenter to do The Thing, because he's a huge Howard Hawks fan. They really kind of wanted a thriller like Alien, and this is kind of in the Alien vein. It's very different, takes a different angle on it, certainly, because the creature isn't just in one spaceship, it's on Earth, and if it eventually got to Earth, it could destroy everything, whereas Ripley gets off just blowing up the spaceship. In a way, I think this film's actually a little more terrifying, although I like both films are incredible. This was kind of Carpenter's big shot. He got a year of pre-production, which was the most pre-production he's ever had for any film before or since. He had a lot of amazing effects. The effects are really dark and bloody and gory and kind of add to the fear of this thing that you don't really understand, this alien terror, but he can transform into these really disgusting things that you're not exactly sure what they are. They're presumably other creatures that he's imitated throughout his travels in this weird alien creature's life, and you're like, what is that? It seems alien and scary, and it feeds into the unknown feeling that really drives this film and makes it even spookier and scarier. It came out the same day as Blade Runner. E.T. had been out for 2 weeks. Blade Runner came in at number 2 at the box office. This came in at number 8. It was a pretty big flop, and it's unfortunate because I think Carpenter is actually pretty cheap most of the time, but this was his big kind of Kubrick almost preparation movie, and it was to show like if he could do this sort of thing, and I don't think the studio really had his back. This should not have been released so close to E.T. E.T. kind of ruled the box office for the rest of the year, so I don't really know when they probably should have released it before E.T. because it's such a different viewpoint. E.T.'s an easier film to take down than The Thing because E.T. shows there could be a lot of hope from these extraterrestrials that come to Earth. And I mean, that's a possible version, but I think, the other possible version is something probably like The Thing. No one's sure who they can trust, and you're never really sure. As an audience, I don't know who you can trust, and that's not a very nice feeling as an audience member. Most of the time you're very coddled, especially at this time, when you have something like E.T. I mean, I do actually like E.T., but it's just like, it's the direct opposite of The Thing. Carpenter got a lot of flack for this film. The director of the original film, The Thing from Another World, actually disavowed this film publicly, which is not very nice. I mean, I feel really bad for Carpenter after this, and it kind of defines the rest of his career. After this, he had to do Christine because no one else would hire him, and then he did Starman, which was a director for hire thing, and then he did Big Trouble in Little China. It was a studio film, but didn't really work out. It never seemed to exactly work out for him after this. Just kind of started his bad luck for the rest of his career. It's sad because I think it's definitely one of like his best films, and it's very artsy in a way. I mean, it's very different. There's no women in this film, it's all men. It was written by Bill Lancaster, Burt Lancaster's son, and it's not really even based on the original film, The Thing from Another World. It's actually more based on the story Who Goes There, which the original film was based on, but this is more like the original story than the first film. And I think Carpenter probably got into this because he's such a Howard Hawks fan. That's a Howard Hawks production. You'd probably assume if I had heard he was making this, I would be surprised he's not making kind of almost more of a direct remake than what he did. It's pretty much a totally different adaptation. I wouldn't even say it's a remake because it's not at all really a remake. It's a totally different take on the story. It definitely reminds me of how intense Carpenter is when he makes horror films. That's why I think they're so scary and so spooky and so nihilistic, is because he does take them so seriously. I've seen that video essay, Was Childs the Thing, or Is McGreedy the Thing? And I don't really know, and I don't really ever want to know. And apparently on set they all thought about, how could you even know you're the Thing if you're an exact copy? Wouldn't you think you're human until like you start transforming into this creature again? And they didn't know, and I like that that's not even in there. That wasn't even on their mindset. They really wanted it to be as spooky and mysterious as possible. The Thing is a lot like Michael Myers in Halloween because it's just like this killing machine and you don't exactly understand what his deal is. Why is it trying to kill these people? And it's almost like that's an afterthought. It's just going and trying to copy these people and copy as many people as it can, and you don't know what its drive is. And that's kind of spookier than anything, than like having a belief behind it. Originally this film got delayed for a year production-wise, and I'm curious what would have happened if he hadn't had the time, all this time in pre-production and all these sets, and he'd done a cheaper version of this movie, and had that succeeded and probably came out a year before E.T., what would his career have been like? But that's neither here nor there. I think it's great that he got this one incredible shot, and he made an incredible, beautiful film. And the funny thing is, I mean, it was stupid to release The Thing and Blade Runner on the same day, but their receptions are pretty identical onto what happened, which was that they both became very memorable films for most people, even though they were completely misunderstood in their time and considered huge flops. It's everything that Carpenter represents, but it shows how smart of a director he is, because he could let go of these influences. He was so influenced by Howard Hawks and used so much of that in his films. Even to that point, he kind of let it go to do what he thought was best for the material, for this short story that he had found, and he found a different angle for it, and an angle that, you know, is so serious and dark, and it's really kind of a mature horror film. Everyone was making cheap horror films at the time, and Carpenter was certainly the king of it. He had made the greatest cheap horror film ever made with Halloween. And this is almost showing he could bring that aesthetic to a major blockbuster, big budget studio film. And he really did. He absolutely did. It just, the timing of it was off because no one was really for that. And unfortunately, nobody saw it because of that. But I think the nihilistic attitude it had, it's a dark, scary film, and nihilism isn't fun, the sad, bleak worldview that is Carpenter, but I think this film is the greatest example of that, the scariest example of that, and the example that shows kind of the A-class filmmaker he really could be if given the proper budget, and the great director that he really was at that time. And I really look at this as the end of probably his greatest period, from Assault on Precinct 13, and The Thing is kind of the end of it. I still really love Christine. I think it's a great horror film, but The Thing is one of those incredibly well-made studio films that somehow happened, and the studio, probably Universal, didn't really like it, but it all came together and made this kind of beautiful piece of horror filmmaking, and that's really The Thing. So if you have seen John Carpenter's The Thing and you would like to talk about it, comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to. And tomorrow is day 2 of my Halloween week of videos, so come back tomorrow, and I'll see you then.